The legislature did not pass an extension of Ulster County's 4% sales tax this year, which means the county will soon have to return to the default 3% rate. That has county officials and local municipal officials rather concerned about keeping their respective budgets balanced. It also has officials doing a lot of finger pointing over who is to blame. There was actually legislation introduced to give the county an extension, but my next guest says he wanted to see the county take over costs of certain programs before anything passed. As a result, nothing has passed. Assemblyman Kevin Cahill is joining me in the studio tonight. Welcome. Thank you for coming.
Liz, thanks.
Okay, so let us just review where we are here beyond what I just said. We did speak to the sheriff of Ulster County, and he was very concerned that he's going to lose money as a result of the fact that they don't have sales tax revenue less than they thought they would. Right now, what would be required is the Assembly would have to come back and pass the extension, which looks very unlikely. So where we're at is a standoff, it seems. Is that right?
I wouldn't call it a standoff. Before the session ended, I had conversations with the county executive in an effort to get him to understand that the legislature might recess, and then we would be without the power to consider any sales tax measures for Ulster County.
Right.
He told me he understood the consequences. He said he understood what the ramifications were, and that's where we are today. So it's not a standoff. It's something he was anticipating since June when he didn't negotiate sales taxes with us.
There's the only question I have, having reviewed this on several levels, is the timing.
Yeah.
I mean, you put in these bills kind of late in the game, like 5 days before the session ended.
Generally speaking, these things are not negotiated on paper. They're negotiated with a handshake.
Right.
Local officials get together, maybe over a cup of coffee, maybe in a public meeting, but they reach an agreement as to what they think they can accept. I attempted to do that with County Executive Hine over the course of 2 years, and it was only toward the end of the session when it became evident that he wasn't going to negotiate at all. He had not reached out to me at all during the 2 years that the sales tax was pending, and that he knew that I was interested in doing this. So I felt that the only avenue left to me, hopefully to force a negotiation, to bring him to the table to negotiate, was to introduce legislation. In introducing that legislation, it was a compromise. The pieces that I offered weren't even the position that I was taking. It was beyond.
Three, right?
Three separate
bills.
Correct.
Okay.
So that there was a menu from which the county executive could have picked, and the county legislature as well.
But the way, and I don't want to get too deep into this because it's a little bit sort of process-oriented, but the way that things would have had to happen, you would have had to have same as in the Senate,
Not true.
which you wouldn't.
No. First of all, all we needed was a home rule message. We sent a message to the county legislature, a letter to the county legislature telling them about the legislation, instructing them as to the home rule message process, and that if they had to overcome objections of the county executive, that they would need 2/3. The legislature, in fact, met, and instead of signing on with the home rule message for this legislation, reaffirmed their support for previous legislation that was offered by a colleague who represents 2 towns in the county. In terms of what's needed in the Senate, I approached Senator William Larkin, who represents also a couple of towns in the county.
Republican.
But was the person who was the prime sponsor of the sales tax measure in the Senate. And I asked him if he would also introduce my bills in the event we ended up with a home rule message. Initially, he said yes. He told me after a conversation with the county executive that he decided not to do so. He said, however, there is a process by which the upper house can accept a bill that has been passed by the lower house and consider it live on their floor. So had we gotten the home rule message from the county, and had we passed the legislation, and there was plenty of time to do that, the Senate could have accepted a substitution.
Okay. There's bigger implications here, but
Yes.
Because obviously sales tax and property tax are the only 2 ways, really, that a local municipality can raise revenue, with
That's
the
true.
exception of getting just straight aid from the state. So
There is a third avenue, however, and that is to cut costs, and that's really at the core of the safety net program. The safety net program across the state of New York is one that's cost neutral or going down.
it's a welfare program, which is one of the 2 programs for which you wanted the county to pick up the tab.
Right.
Right.
And the safety net program is picked up by every other county in the state except for Ulster. Every single other county
But they've
picks up the
agreed to
safety
do
net.
so, I thought. They agreed over a 3-year period to do so.
They agreed to do so after the legislature was no longer convened.
All right, so here's the problem. The county executive who issued this statement to me, there it is, in advance of your appearance tonight. Now, we should say we've invited the county executive to come on the show. So far, he has not, though he says that he will. He basically accuses you of extortion. He says you introduced these bills because you wanted the county, to force the county to pick up the tab for these programs. It's the Help America Vote Act, which is an elections-related reform program, and then this safety net welfare situation. I mean, you are in a position of power, are you not? You are the state official here.
It's an unfortunate choice of words by someone who's relatively new to politics, that doesn't understand that politics is in fact the art of negotiation. It's also from a person who has been in a position of power and has not had that power challenged. He's used to having his way. And this was an instance where he was going to have to actually sit down at the table and negotiate an outcome and not necessarily get his way. If in his view that is extortion, I suggest to you he doesn't know the meaning of the word.
Okay. Clearly, the two of you are not seeing eye to eye.
We are not.
Right. So in local reports, I've seen his comments that are different. Obviously, I've not seen him on the show. I have spoken to him. Is this really about some sort of animosity between the two of you?
Oh, absolutely not.
Or your interest in his job, potentially?
Definitely not.
Okay.
I had every opportunity to seek that job. I chose not to. I'm very happy with the job that I have. I love representing the people in the New York State Legislature. As you well know, you see me in the halls of the Capitol with a big smile on my face. I love the work that I do, and I'm very grateful that the people have given me the opportunity. It's about the fairness of the safety net program. It's about the fairness of sales tax. And it's about the proper administration of the safety net program. Ulster County is pretty close to last in terms of employing safety net recipients. The cost of the safety net program is going up faster in Ulster County than in any other county of the state. Those costs are being sent down to the town level and the city of Kingston level, who can ill afford to do so with a program that's fully administered by the county.
But because of this argument that the two of you are having, the city of Kingston stands to lose millions of dollars worth of revenue that puts a hole in its budget that the mayor says is not sustainable.
I tried to impress upon the county executive the gravity of his refusal to negotiate, and he told me he understood the gravity of that, but he still continued to refuse to negotiate.
So you don't think any of this is you have a responsibility in any of this?
Of course I do, yes.
Do you think it's 100% the county executive's fault
I
here?
think in terms of not being willing to negotiate, yes, because I've expressed a willingness to negotiate all along. You know, he picked up the phone a few times to call me. When I said, "Oh, you're calling to negotiate," he flat out told me, "No, I'm not. We have different points of view. We have nothing to negotiate." Mm-hmm. I've been consistent in my efforts to bring this to the table for negotiation.
Okay, but now we're here. Whatever happened before, we're now here, which is to say, there's no extension. The governor did propose at one point that maybe we shouldn't be here at all, that you shouldn't have the legislature weighing in on whether or not this happens, right? Actually, what the governor wants is if you want a straight extension of your existing sales tax, then you should be able to do it yourself. This was existing. They're not seeking in Ulster County an increase. Do you agree with that proposal? It didn't fly with the legislature.
Well, you just nailed it. It didn't fly with the legislature. The legislature believes that it is traditionally the place where revenue decisions are made, and there is a base of revenue that's available to the municipalities in the 3% sales tax without any involvement of the state legislature, and this 1% is extraordinary. It's extraordinary revenue. It comes with attachments, conditions all across the state of New York. There are counties that only give the revenue, that divide the revenue between those towns in the county that have police departments. There are counties that use the money only to pay a control board. There are counties that use the money to pay school districts, pay villages and towns, and don't give any of the extra percent to the county. All across the state of New York, county leaders have been willing to sit down with their state leaders and negotiate an outcome. Only in Ulster County has that refusal occurred. But let me point out, it's not the only place that hasn't gotten the tax they want. Right next door in neighboring Dutchess County, County Executive Mark Molinaro proposed in his county executive statement earlier this year to have a new real estate transactions tax. He was unable to secure a sponsor of that bill in either house and unable to see its way through because the conditions could not be met.
Okay,
so it's not unusual.
What do we do now, though? Do you believe that the Assembly Speaker should come back or even will? Because he has some rather sticky problems in his house, and that's ongoing sexual harassment scandals. I don't think he has the appetite to come back before January.
I think there's plenty of reasons to come back. We have a lot of business, not just in the Assembly, but in the Senate as well. There's the last part of the Women's Equality Act.
The Senate Republicans have no desire to
That's
touch
right.
that.
There's also some other local measures. I successfully passed legislation that will allow the consolidation of 3 local governments in our county that has not even been allowed to the floor in the Senate. We certainly have to come back for that. And yes, there are reasons to come back, and I hope that we do come back. But if we don't, what has to be understood by the people who are affected by this is that the county executive was aware of that option, was aware of that possibility when he refused to negotiate, when he was willing to let the tax die. Now, my effort is to make sure that we see that the county gets the funding it needs to operate the programs it should be operating. Last year, the county executive was expecting, according to his budget, $8 million from the sale of the Ulster County Infirmary, the nursing home. He got $11.5 million. That's $3.5 million more. The county of Ulster has been assuming the cost of trash. That's $2.8 million more that they're now passing down to the towns. That's already exceeding the 1/4's revenue that they're not going to get. It goes on and on and on. There are plenty of revenues for the county executive to do what he has to do for the first quarter of the next fiscal year.
And then wait
if he
until you
wants
come
to
back.
sit down and negotiate by the time we come back.
Okay, so we're out of time. I just want to ask this. You've spoken to the Speaker and asked the Speaker to bring the House back.
Yes, I've asked. I call the Speaker about twice a week, asking him if the House is coming back.
And the likelihood of that happening is what?
I'm hearing that there's no plan, and there's no plan to make a plan to call the House back.
Okay. So I guess to be continued.
To be
in
continued.
The saga of Ulster County sales tax. I thank you very much, Assemblyman, for your time. As always, it's good to see you.
Thank you.